Imagine this. You are at a beautiful park on a sunny day. Children are laughing, they're playing on the swings and slides, but something is missing. Oh, yeah. There are no fences anywhere, like nowhere to be found. There are no clear borders between this playground and the busy street nearby. Oh my gosh, you almost panic. Like, how do you think those kids would play? I mean, especially as a parent. I mean, do you think they would be cautious or anxious or maybe not at all? Now, imagine that same park, but this time with a bright, colorful fence surrounding it. Maybe some characters, maybe Snoopy, maybe something from the Muppets. Oh, I love the Muppets. The children are running freely. They are exploring every inch of the playground without a care in the world, while the parents, they sip lattes because, it is pumpkin latte season. Their laughter is louder and their joy is more infectious. Well, this, my friends, is exactly what the beauty of boundaries is all about. Boundaries. What? Boundaries can be beautiful? Yes, believe it or not, they actually can. Here, let me show you. I'm Chad Lawson, and let's calm it down in 3, 2, 1. So just like that fence in the park, boundaries in our lives, they're not about restriction. They're about freedom. I'm going to say that again. Just like that fence in the park, boundaries in our lives are not about restriction. They're about freedom. They're not walls that keep others out, but rather lines that define where we end and others begin. They're the invisible force field that protects our peace and our energy and our sense of self, right? I mean, but here's the thing. For many of us, setting boundaries, it feels so uncomfortable, even selfish, right? Am I alone in this? We've been conditioned to play nice, to be nice, and to always say yes, and to put others' needs even before our own. We worry that drawing a line in the sand will push people away or make us seem difficult. I get it. I do. This is something I struggle with quite often. And I used to be this chronic people pleaser myself. I would say yes to every favor, every invitation, every request, even when my inner voice was screaming, no. Have you felt like this? I thought that being available 24/7 or 25/8, from what I've been told lately it's called, that it would make me a good friend, right? Or a dedicated employee, or even a loving partner. But in reality, I was exhausted. I was resentful and bitter, even began losing touch with my own needs and desires, which then even begins to ask, well, who am I and what do I even want in life? But it wasn't until I found myself on the verge of complete burnout that I realized something had to change. And that's when I discovered this amazing power of boundaries. Now I know what you might be thinking, Chad, that sounds great and all, but how do I actually set boundaries without feeling like a total jerk? It's a valid question. It is. So I'm glad you asked. So let's break it down. Let's take this apart. Let's open the box, as I like to say. So first things first, boundaries are not about controlling others. I'm going to say that again. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about taking responsibility for our own actions and our own emotions. They're a way of communicating our needs clearly and respectfully. Think of it like this. Boundaries are like the rules of a game, right? They make things fair and fun for everyone that's involved. And without them, the game becomes chaotic and frustrating and not really fun for anyone. Can you imagine playing Uno with the rules of poker? I don't know. I don't know how to play poker, but if you imagine, like, rules or structures are there for a reason. So yes, that sounds nice on paper, but like, how do we start setting these magical, colorful boundaries? Well, I have a few strategies that might help. The first one is to get really clear on your priorities. What matters most to you? What energizes you and what drains you? Because when you begin to understand these core truths about yourself, that's the first step in knowing where to draw your lines. And then the second one, start small. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. I'm going to say that one again too. You do not have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Begin with something manageable, like setting no work emails after 7 p.m., right? Or learning to say, I'll think about it, instead of immediately saying yes to every request. And then also use I statements. This one is really important. Instead of saying, you're always asking too much of me, turn that around to say, I feel overwhelmed when I'm asked to take on the extra task without notice. Because this keeps the focus on your feelings and needs rather than blaming or accusing the other person. I feel overwhelmed when fill in the blank, when this happens, right? When I'm being asked on to take something extra that has completely blindsided me. So use I statements. And then also remember that no is a complete sentence. Watch this. No. That is a full sentence. You don't always have to justify or explain your boundaries. The simple, kind, no, I can't do that, is often enough. You would be surprised. And then finally, be consistent. Be consistent. Boundaries only work if we maintain them, right? It might feel uncomfortable at first, but stick with it, because the more you practice, the easier it becomes. I mean, imagine that fence around that park where the children were playing. If there were open doors or holes where things could get in and out, that doesn't really make it a proper, safe space, does it? So be consistent. Boundaries only work if we maintain them. Now, I do want to pause here and acknowledge something that's really important. Okay? Setting boundaries can be really, really hard, especially if you're not used to it, right? I'm an empath. I'm a feeler. I love taking care of people. And you might feel guilty. You might feel selfish or even afraid of disappointing others. And that's normal. These feelings are totally normal, and they don't mean that you're doing anything wrong. In fact, I want you to think about this. When you set clear boundaries, you're actually being kinder to both yourself and to others. You are creating space for more authentic relationships where people understand and they respect your needs. Are you ready for this? When you do this, you're modeling healthy behavior for those around you, especially children who are watching and learning from your example. And here's a beautiful paradox. When we have strong boundaries, we actually are able to be more generous. We're actually able to be more loving. We're actually able to be more present with others because we're not depleted. We're not exhausted. We're not resentful. And we can actually give from a place of genuine abundance rather than obligation. I had a friend years ago tell me, the third favor is no longer a favor. And I think that's really important. It's like, hey, can you do me a favor? Yeah, sure. Hey, can you do me another? Yeah, sure. Hey, can you do me a favor? And after 3, it's too much, right? Having strong boundaries will actually give you the ability to be more generous, more loving, and more present with others. I remember the first time I actually set a boundary with a close friend, and they were going through a really difficult time. And they would call me at all hours because it was something that I had been through. And so I was trying to help them with what they were going through. And they would constantly be like, this is what's going on. This is where I am. And I wanted to be there. I did. I wanted to be there for them. But I was losing sleep. I was starting to dread the calls and ignore the calls. And finally, I had to take a deep breath and say, hey, you know what? I really care about you. Like, I care about what you're going through. I've been there with what you're going through. And I want to support you. But I also need to take care of myself in this, right? So can we set up a specific time to talk? Maybe twice a week, right? And when you have questions, write them down. And when we get together this twice a week, let's go over them. That way I can be really present for during those times when we get together. And you know what? Believe it or not, it worked. They understood. And our friendship, I mean, we're still close to this point today. And you know what? It's because we knew what to expect. We knew what to ask. We knew what to give. And I felt this huge weight just lift off my shoulders. And I could be a good friend without sacrificing my own well-being. So this week, I have an invitation for you. I want you to identify one area of your life where you feel your boundaries could use some strengthening. Maybe it's a certain person or a certain situation, right? So I want you to reflect on what a healthy boundary might look like in that context. Remember, you don't have to get it perfect. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to get it perfect. This is a practice. And like any skill, it takes time to develop. So be patient, be kind with yourself as you explore this new territory. And know this, I am rooting for you. I am. Every time you set a healthy boundary, you're not just taking care of yourself, you are contributing to a world where mutual respect and authenticity is the norm. You are creating ripples of positive change that extend far beyond yourself. And so as I wrap today, I want to return to that image of the park that we started with. Do you remember? The one with the kids? Imagine yourself as both the child and the fence. Your boundaries are what allow your inner child to play freely, to explore and to grow without fear. They are the loving container that says, hey, you know what? You are safe here. You are valued here. And your needs, they matter. And so setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, you're not pushing people away. You're not. You are inviting them into a more genuine and respectful relationship with the real you. You're creating a life that feels true to your values, your needs, and your deepest self. So go ahead, draw those lines in the sand, paint that fence in bright, beautiful colors with Kermit and Snoopy and maybe even Garfield, maybe even Alf all hanging out together. Your peace, your joy, it's worth protecting. Who you are to yourself, for yourself, and yourself is worth protecting. So thanks. And thank yourself, actually. Thank you for being here, for doing this really important work of self-discovery and growth. Thank you for listening. Thank you for living. And until next time, be kind to your mind. And I want you to remember, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to set a beautiful fence around you. To find more episodes of Calm It Down, see where I may be appearing in your area, or just simply want to know where to send me some chocolate chip cookies, visit calmitdownpodcast.com. This podcast was written and produced by yours truly, Chad Lawson, composer, pianist, and nationally recognized sweet tooth. The views, expressions, and techniques in this episode are of my personal opinion and not intended, nor should they, serve as a substitute for medical advice or diagnosis rendered to you by your individual doctor or other healthcare provider. Only a licensed physician should evaluate your situation, provide a diagnosis, or render other medical advice to you, and you should only act upon the advice of this physician. Now, I'm an extreme empath by nature, but my profession is that of a composer and pianist, not a licensed therapist or physician. I hear from thousands of listeners how my music has helped them through various stages of emotional needs, and I simply want to offer this in future podcast episodes to aid those needs. So to find a list of licensed professionals in your area, please visit calmitdownpodcast.com. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review, or better yet, share it with a friend. While it takes less than 60 seconds to do, its impact will last for years to come, as every little bit helps in growing the awareness and the importance of mental and emotional health. Thank you for listening. Thank you for living. And until next time, be kind to your mind and join me again as we calm it down.